Victoria, is everything all right? People talk or say things.
Hello?
Why didn't you tell me it was out of order? I suppose you think that's funny.
I'm not allowed out the front door.
Who says you weren't?
Them.
Who?
Them.
It was terrible out there. I could hear breathing.
We told you.
Are you worried about the man?
They hate us. That's the truth. They want to kill and torture every one of us. You can see it in their eyes.
Come now, Frederick. Do you dream about unholy things?
I really don't like what's going on here. There's something wrong, and that's a fact.
Wait. What did you dream last night? This manifestation of evil. You must be delivered from evil.
Brown-haired albino was unbuttoning his coat, his eyes on Cermak, who was shaking hands with Roosevelt.
Well, it's wonderful to see you, Tony. A lovely gesture.
I just wanted to remind you and your administrations that you have my full and enthusiastic support.
The albino assassin was reaching under his coat, but I grabbed his arm and pulled it away, and his hand came back empty, the gun still under his arm as his coat flapped. I buried a fist in his belly and doubled him over. And when he came up, the snout of my 9mm stared him in the face.
You got you this time, fucker!
Sounded like firecrackers, and the muzzle flash above the crowd looked like fireworks, but this was something else. Blurred figures in the crowd were falling, and a stubby, bushy-haired brown little man in a white shirt standing up on a bench was swarmed like a come-to-Jesus meeting got out of hand. Meanwhile, the ex-blonde was pulling away, and I swung at him, and he went down, unconscious, as the mass of people around us were heading to my right. I moved against the tide towards Cermak, pushing, shoving, and got to that touring car where Miller and Lang were crouched over the fallen Cermak, red spreading from his left side under his unbuttoned suit coat.
Where? Where were the goddamn bodyguards?
I had the blonde, Your Honor. He didn't fire the round. Some bushy-haired little creep.
This was no time to tell him he'd been shot by his son-in-law's gardener.
What the hell? They got me after all, Heller.
The crowd was turning into a mob. Miller, Lang, and I were hovering over Cermak in the quiet of the storm.
Heller, get your people out of the way. We need to move the president and his vehicle out of here.
For Christ's sakes, Cermak's been shot. Take him with you. Get him to a hospital.
Roosevelt, sitting in back, heard me.
Put Tony in here and get us the hell out.
The shooter's big revolver was clicking on an empty chamber now. But that must have had an 8-round rod, as I found myself on a battlefield where bleeding audience members wandered like wounded warriors, helped by their dazed loved ones.
Although edited for television, tonight's thriller contains scenes of suspense and violence which may be unsuitable for young viewers. Parental discretion is advised.
Robservations with Robert Burnett.
Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, your sommelier of sci-fi and cinema, your collector friend, your evangelist of the imagination, and the perhaps never to be defined existential Mr. Rogers. That's right, moi, Robert Meyer Burnett. I'm, of course, Rob, casting at you. You imagination connoisseurs from right here in the Robservatory. You members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community. That's right, this is Robservations episode number 1062. Monday, September 22nd, 2025 is the 30th anniversary of the release of David Fincher's seminal SE7EN. And, I wanted to talk about it. Before I get there, because it's an important movie to me, you've heard me talk about it, I'll tell you why, but it actually represents a number of things, but I wanted to get into it, found a good article to read, which is down in the description if you want to follow along. It's a article from Medium. I think you have to pay for it, you have to be a member, but if you don't have a subscription, I'll read it to you. It's also down the tip link. You can find the tip link down there too if you want to support the channel via tips. You can do that. And like and subscribe. You know, I've been pussyfooting around this channel for too long. I want my YouTube plaque. I've been on YouTube for 10 years. This channel's been going on since 2018. I started around the holidays of 2018. I want my 100,000 subscriber YouTube plaque. That means I've got like 29,000 subscribers to go. That's a tall order. I could work harder. It's my own fault. A lot of channels have eclipsed mine. You know, I just don't do the work, apparently. I'm only one guy. I don't make clips. I'm going to work harder, people. I promise. But if you don't like and subscribe to this channel, like and subscribe, because I'm telling you, I'm going to ask you for things. I don't ask my audience for much, but I'm going to ask you. I want my plaque. You know why? It just represents work completed. I can finally breathe easy. And to that effect, I was curious. John Campy on the John Campy show this week asked, I guess he asked ChatGPT, what were the most annoying things that YouTubers did? Or he read an article about it, and then he asked ChatGPT, and I thought, well, that's interesting. I mean, if I expect to get more subscribers, maybe I should look into why people find me fucking annoying. So I went to Grok. See, when I go to AI, and I don't want to hear about Elon Musk, I go to Grok because Grok is, of course, a concept that Robert Heinlein came up with in the book Stranger in a Strange Land. And to grok something is to understand it holistically from any or every different angle. You understand both sides of the argument. You understand everything about something, which is something no one in America can do these days, is to grok anything, because you have to come at it from both sides. So I go to Grok. That's my YouTube. What am I saying? My online bot of choice. And I had to ask myself. Well, I said, what do people, I did write this. I said, what do people find most fucking annoying about YouTuber Robert Meyer Burnett? I know, I'm speaking in the third person, whatever, but I was asking a chat bot. And so, let me share with you the answers. Because I believe that self-reflection is always a good thing. Criticism is always a good thing. It's how you take criticism that can always use work. But how can you get mad at a chatbot? You can't. So here's what it had to say. Based on discussions across online communities like Reddit and X, formerly Twitter, Robert Meyer Burnett, a YouTuber known for his film industry background, Robservations commentary series, and strong opinions on sci-fi franchises like Star Trek, has drawn significant criticism from viewers and fans. Much of the backlash stems from his appearances on podcasts like EFAP, his YouTube content, and social media posts. While some appreciate his insider knowledge, others find his style and views grating. Here's a compiled list of the 10 most commonly cited annoying habits or behaviors drawn from recurring complaints and forums in posts. Now, first of all, the fact that anybody talks about me in forums at all is flattering. I've never really thought about that. You know, you think about, like, when I'm on camera right now, I'm looking into a little green light, and I'm thinking that anything that's happening or any opinions that are being formed about me are happening while I'm live talking to you. It's flattering to know that offline people are going on Reddit and calling me an asshole. There's something reassuring about that. It means you've elicited something, some feeling in somebody, negative or not. I mean, it's something. They remembered you. So anyway, here are the 10 things that I got back. Number 1, rambling off topic during discussions. In collaborative streams or podcasts like EFAP, Burnett often derails conversations by going on lengthy tangents about unrelated subjects, burying any relevant points, and frustrating co-hosts and viewers who want focused analysis. Can't argue with that. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes it happens on this show. Sometimes I don't even remember what tangent I was on in the first place, as anybody who watches this channel knows. I wish that weren't the case, but when you're speaking extemporaneously and you're speaking live and you're speaking off the top of your head, you know, It's tough. So, point well taken. Number 2, interrupting and talking over others. He frequently cuts people off mid-sentence, dominating discussions without letting guests or co-hosts finish their thoughts, which come across as disrespectful and self-centered. Also, something I have to, I can't say no to. I do try and hold myself, but it's tough. It's tough sometimes, but I stand guilty as charged. Number 3, overly negative and hyperbolic rants about modern Star Trek. Burnett's constant profanity-laced tirades against shows like Strange New Worlds, Discovery, and Picard, calling them brain-dead, swill, irrelevant, or inauthentic, are seen as repetitive whining that ignores nuance and alienates fans who enjoy the new content. Apparently, Grok knows me well. Yes, that's all true. It's all true. However, it does not mention that I always say, if these new Star Trek shows are the first time you've discovered Star Trek speaks for itself. It doesn't need me to speak for it. So if you like the new shows, it'll lead you back to classic Trek, as anyone YouTube channel like Bunny Tails Reacts will show you. Or any of the people that have, even Popcorn in Bed, have gone back and watched the Star Trek movies, and Star Trek speaks for itself. I rant and rave about modern Star Trek. Let me be clear, because I actually think that it's the brain-dead swill that it churns out is detrimental to the culture where Star Trek used to inspire and mean something to people. I feel what's problematic about how far the franchise has fallen is the people that are writing it, and look no further than Season 3 of Strange New Worlds. There's no ideas there. They're cherry-picking old classic Star Trek that they don't really understand because they haven't taken the time to watch it. And history itself has already judged Star Trek. You don't need me to tell you that. It's not an opinion whether Star Trek the original series was a significant milestone television program. It was one of the first shows to find real success in strip syndication. I could sit here and pontificate, and you've heard me do it many, many times, for a long time. But Star Trek history spoke for itself. You don't need me to delve in and tell you these things. And if you choose not to believe it, and a lot of people don't pay attention to history anymore, so I understand. But Star Trek has a long storied history that began in 1966. It began further than that, but we saw it first in well, I didn't, because I didn't exist yet. But that's what I'm saying, is that I believe that Star Trek, and to a certain extent, if you really think about it, Star Trek was about and go with me on this, it was about what a constitutionally based America, which really became the world itself in the 23rd century after they retconned a post-atomic horror. But what it was what Star Trek had sort of at its core was a constitutional America that brought the world together, became spacefaring, and the very ideas that formed America, our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, still existed. Now, sometimes, like in the Omega Glory, it would be more overt, but for the most part, it was understated. But our society, the melting pot of America, worked in the future. And one of the problems that I have with modern Star Trek, especially since 2009, is the idea that Star Trek itself had within its foundations American exceptionalism and the Constitution and the Bill of Rights built into it is not a part of modern Star Trek. So modern Star Trek, to me, also reflects what's wrong with our country. And in the sense that the United States has lost sight of two of the greatest, well, not just two, but many great documents that people are starting to nitpick or not believe in the documents because the people that created those documents were flawed. But they knew they were flawed, and they built the idea that they could change and evolve into those documents. But anyway, I won't get into that. But so that was number 3. Number 4, dismissing writers and creators as dumb or incompetent. He repeatedly insults Star Trek's current writing staff, claiming they haven't read any science fiction or don't understand the franchise, which critics say shows arrogance and a gatekeeping attitude toward newer interpretations. Let me tell you something. I don't gatekeep. I don't tell anybody. I don't hold the gate shut so you can't get in. You can get in anywhere you want to go. Criticism is not gatekeeping. And the simple fact is, the people that are writing Star Trek haven't done the work. They haven't read the books, they haven't lived the life, and they're going back and they're ripping off classic Star Trek. You know how I know? Because I've seen it happen. You can. This particular season of Star Trek: The Next Generation, or Star Trek: Strange New Worlds, is one episode after another. They went back to and lifted things from TOS. They don't so much go back and look, because I understand it's a prequel to TOS, but they've literally gone. If you watch Strange New Worlds before you watch TOS, they have actually ruined the episodes of the original series, ruined them, and that I cannot forgive. If lightning should strike, whatever. Number 5, perceived hypocrisy in his critiques. Fans point out inconsistencies, like praising certain modern Star Trek elements, Picard Season 3, when they align with his nostalgia but bashing others, making his opinions seem selective and rage bait driven for views. First of all, I don't do any rage bait. If I wanted to delve into rage bait, this would be a very different channel. Yes, my Star Trek rants, I get angry. And the thing is, you can watch Star Trek Picard Season 1 and 2 and not like them, but like Season 3. And it's not about nostalgia, because here's the thing that people I don't think quite understand. What Season 3 of Picard did, because it wasn't going into the past, in the sense it was actually furthering the stories of characters we knew and loved, bringing them up to speed, up to the present, and seeing where they were, and they did things that we'd never seen before. I thought all of that was very interesting. I thought where they took Dr. Crusher, the Doctors Without Borders. I thought where they took Geordi, making him a father of 2 very interesting girls who in themselves were compelling characters. I wanted to see more of those 2. I really loved those 2 characters, the way these were new characters. This is not nostalgia bait, but a lot of people don't quite understand that. I think bringing Data back might be pushing it, but they kind of have to. Number 6, acting like the ultimate authority on sci-fi and film. With his Hollywood credentials, he often positions himself as the definitive expert, viceroy of verisimilitude. I didn't call myself that. A viewer did. But detractors say he overstates his knowledge and ignores valid counterpoints, coming off as pretentious. Can't argue with that. But I will say this. A lot of the audience that I speak to, they don't know what I'm talking about. And it goes with age. And the fact is, I filled my brain my entire life. I've been filling my brain with these subjects. Not an invalid criticism, however. But the thing is, I don't position myself as the definitive expert. And the nicknames that people hung on me, and then people did artwork, and I thought that they were fun. It makes the show kind of fun. Maybe it's pretentious, but there is a certain pretension that should be looked at with bemusement. I don't hold my head up and go, I am the viceroy of verisimilitude. It's funny. There's supposed to be an element of humor. What the fuck is a viceroy of verisimilitude anyway? I guess I'm the only one. So, but again, very valid criticism. I understand how. See, here's the problem. I don't go around saying that I know more. There's a lot of people that know more than me. But the problem is, we somehow, or not we, I don't, but our modern age seems to have an aversion to expertise. Like, just because I know more than you, I'm older probably, and I've seen more, and I could opine more because I've been interested in this. And when I say interested, I mean very interested. Since I was a little kid, I've spent my life learning about this useless information. What is all this stuff? I don't know, but I've been spending my life immersing myself in it. Most people haven't. So in the YouTube space, also I haven't made, $100 million grossing movie, but I have worked on major motion pictures, both as a documentarian, as a producer or whatever. So in the YouTube space, makes me unique, I guess. But in terms of overstating my knowledge, I don't do that. but ignoring valid counterpoints, coming off as pretentious, well, guilty as charged. Number 7, unrelenting nostalgia for classic content only. He fixes on older Star Trek eras, TOS, TNG, while rejecting anything post-2005 as inferior or fake, which annoys viewers who feel he's stuck in the past and resistant to evolution in storytelling. Hey man, I love evolution in storytelling. When it's good. When it's good. And again, criticism is not a bad thing. And if I don't like something, I will tell you. It's just like the same argument. Does everybody love the Star Wars prequels? And does everybody love the Star Wars sequels? Not everybody does. That doesn't mean that they dislike everything except classic Star Wars. Classic Star Wars, I think I would dare say Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back. I always exclude Jedi. But Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back have been unmatched in modern Star Wars history. I would say Andor is definitely a worthy successor. But in my mind, even if you don't watch Rogue One, I've got problems with Rogue One, but I would say that to me, Andor, Star Wars, and Empire are peak Star Wars. Those are the 3 best things in the franchise. Number 8, strong polarizing political opinions on social media. His posts about Israel-Palestine, often harshly criticizing Palestinians or Hamas, while defending Israel, lead to heated arguments and accusations of bias or insensitivity, turning his feed into a divisive echo chamber. I don't think my feed is an echo chamber. I think I'm almost a person of... There's very few people, unless they're Israeli or Jewish, that support my views, my outspoken views now on what I believe is going on in Israel. As I've always said, Israel is the tip of the spear, and it is fighting a battle, an existential civilizationist battle that is being fought all around the world right now that somehow is seemingly going unrecognized. But it's a difficult situation. Would I like the war in Gaza to end? I would. Would I like innocent people to start dying or stop dying? I would. That is not a Freudian slip. It would have been easy. Hamas surrenders. Period. Returns the hostages. Hamas wants people to die. They started this war. They've been fighting a war unlike any other war in history, where they literally built an infrastructure to allow them to wage war above civilian population centers. That has never been seen in the history of warfare, not to this extent. They believe that their entire population can be martyred, and they have to surrender. And that is something that I've said, and if I'm outspoken about it, so be it. I'm Jewish. I've spent my whole life listening to people who hate Jews and want to kill us all, and they will kill us all if they have the chance. And the only place in my life that Jews could go to be safe, and they can't be safe there even, is Israel. So, I can't help the way I was born and raised. And besides, if you look at what Israel has given the world, the medical advances they've made in the last year alone that will benefit the entire planet. Ask yourself, what other Middle Eastern nation is adding more to the scientific and medical knowledge of our world than Israel? Use Grok. Ask those questions. You might be you might find the answers illuminating. Number 9, repetitive and predictable negativity in his videos. His YouTube Robservations episode often recycle the same complaints about pandering, inclusion, or lost sincerity in modern media, leading to burnout among subscribers who find the content formulaic and exhausting. I would say that I think that's unfair, actually. I do talk about pandering or lost sincerity, but not in, I think if it's more of an analytic way. Maybe if people think that if subscribers are being burnt out. I've lost a lot of subscribers in the last week or two, which is interesting because I really stayed mum about a lot of what's been going on in the last week. 10, and this is the one thing that I completely object to. And if anyone thinks this, well, I'll say they're wrong. Number 10, grifting for engagement and views. Many accuse him of being a rage bait creator who amplifies controversies, calling episodes the worst ever, to boost Patreon subs and YouTube metrics, rather than providing balanced or constructive criticism. I completely reject that. So anyway, there you go. I asked Grok what it could tell me about myself. I learned a lot, and some things I reject, but most are rather valid, and criticism is important. Now, all of that said, 30 years ago, Seven, David Fincher's Seven, some people would say that Seven is the first David Fincher movie. Of course, he had made Alien 3 that had come out 5 years before, but he hadn't made another feature. David Fincher was also one of the great music video directors of all time. One of my favorite music videos that he ever made, and it's funny because it's a movie tie-in, is from The Adventures of Ford Fairlane, which is Cradle of Love. And he directed that video. And what I loved about that video is how he compressed time. And then he did the Rolling Stones video. What's the name of the song? When the giant Rolling Stones are walking around the city. Fincher did some incredible music videos. I mean, he did a lot of Paula Abdul videos. I think he directed Straight Up. And incredible music video stylist. But here's my I'm going to tell the story one last time, celebrating its 30th anniversary. So after I left working in feature production for Bill Young at Warner Brothers, I went over to Silver Pictures to be a reader. And to be honest, I wasn't very good as a story analyst. Not that I couldn't analyze stories, but it was the amount of work, the workload. I found it overwhelming. So at Silver Pictures, you had to read 2 scripts a night, and then at least 4 on the weekends. And sometimes they would send you more. Now, if you think about it, I was freelance, so I didn't have to go into the studio. I'd go in and pick up scripts in the morning, and then I could go home. But I had to read 2 screenplays a day, and then you had to write what's called coverage on those screenplays. You had to write a synopsis of the story that was usually a page long, and then you wrote a page of notes and a recommendation. And it was basically so the creative executives and other executives would have the coverage. They wouldn't have to read the scripts themselves. And it was a way to weed through all the material, because we got so much material at Silver Pictures, because Joel Silver, of course, was a producer on the Die Hard movies and Predator and Lethal Weapon. So it was a really, really interesting place to be. And we got really the best material in Hollywood, but we also got shitty material. And if a hot script was sent to the company, that wasn't the scripts we got to read. That was the upper echelons would read those. So if Shane Black's new script came in, then Joel would read it, and everybody would read it immediately, but we would get the dregs of the dregs. Or we would get when agents or managers would send in scripts. And there was a manager, and I want to say he was at Bauer Benedict at the time, I want to say. And he was, his name is Gavin Pallone. And whatever he sent in, was usually pretty good. So I asked if anything came in from Gavin Pallone, could I read it? And that's what and I could ask that, and people were like, whatever, dude. Because most readers, you're reading as fast as you can. My problem was I wanted to know what happened. So I would really give the scripts a read. So I would sit there and I would spend time really reading the scripts, because I had this romantic notion that I could make a difference. You know, like, I'm going to read these scripts and I'm going to give these scripts a fair shake. And really, you can tell if a script is good in the first couple of pages. If you can just tell the writing is good. 10 pages, you absolutely know. You really know after 1 or 2 or 3 pages, but in 10 pages, you know. But then when you're a reader, you have to read everything, so you have to write a synopsis, because the executives have to be able to trust your synopsis to then go talk to the agent or manager. If the writer comes in to meet, they have to know. But so I would get overwhelmed, because it would take me a long time, and then it was difficult for me to read a script and then sit down and write the coverage and just get the work done, because my mind was too filled with other things. So it was tough. It was a hard job. So one day, and the point of being a creative executive, what you want to do is creative executives get to work, and you get to develop scripts with writers. It's a great job. A reader's below that. So if you show that you can recognize good material at a production company, you want to get bumped up from being a reader to being a creative executive. That was my dream, Ray Kinsella. That was my dream. And one day I get the script that Andy Kevin Walker wrote for Seven. And I was only told that Andy Kevin Walker was a new writer, and apparently when he wrote Seven, he worked at a Tower Records in New York City. That's all I knew. You know, you didn't necessarily know much about the writers. I just knew, I don't know why I remember that about Andy Kevin Walker, but I remember that. And, you know, I don't know if any of you saw the snippet I put up of the interview I did with Roy Lee. I'm going to release the whole thing. I just put up the bit about the long walk, but I talked to him for an hour, and Roy Lee is basically, he's kind of a hero of mine, because back in the 90s, this is way after I read Seven, but Roy Lee kind of consolidated different production companies and managers and people that were reading and tracking scripts. He kind of set up a thing so multiple people from multiple companies could work together finding material, because not every company wanted to make the same things. So Roy Lee, from the very beginning, was looking for material, and he basically reads it himself. And I called him in our interview. I said, you're like M. You run MI6. You're gathering information. You have your agents out there, and he's willing to listen to people. I mean, I'm not going to give you his name and number. That's why he still talks to me. I don't send anybody there. I'm not going to, unless I know you or whatever. I don't do that. But he's out there gathering material, and that's why he finds scripts like Zach Kreger's Barbarian. And Roy Lee is able to define and know exactly what he wants to make. And he was the person that had the idea explained to me. He was reading Reddit forums or different forums back in the day, and he found out that, wow, there was something really interesting going on in Japanese horror. And he was the one that reached out and made deals with Japanese companies that are like, wait a minute, you Americans want to remake The Ring? You want to make Ringu? And really? Because they had no idea that their movies were being seen outside of Japan. It was Roy Lee who had the idea to do that. And he got the rights, and then we got Gore Verbinski's The Ring. And then he had the rights to Infernal Affairs, and everybody made him the American contact, the go-to contact for Asian remakes. And he built his company Vertigo on that. And now today he's a genius at finding, hey, I'm playing Lego video game. These characters are interesting. You know, why couldn't you make an animated movie like this video game? Hence, he goes out and he gets the rights to Lego and makes the Lego movie. Who had the rights to Minecraft? Roy Lee. The man's a genius. He's a genius in getting big tentpole properties, but he's also a genius at looking at scripts and knowing what scripts are good. And I finally found out in the interview, I said, what is it you're looking for in a screenplay? And it's very simple. Like, I'm always trying to get into, like, you should make this as a murder mystery or something. What Roy Lee wants, and what I want, and what I learned what I wanted when I was reading Seven for the first time, was I want to not know what's going to happen at the end of the script. So when you start reading a script, like, there was a point when I was the creative executive for director Robert Armstrong in the early 90s. After he left Free Willy, I went to work for him. And I used to take scripts, and I would say to him, there were thrillers, it was buddy cop movies, and they would always end with the protagonist killing the antagonist. And I'm like, if this is the way the script's going to end, I'm going to take this script and throw it in the corner into our office. And there was a pile. After like 6 months, there was just a pile of scripts that insulted my intelligence. And what Roy Lee is looking for is scripts that he doesn't know. So if you're reading a murder mystery, you know the mystery is going to get solved. And that means what you're buying into is, that's why people love procedurals. They know that with the procedural, you know how it's going to end. Well, in Roy Lee's world, and in my world I'd like to live in, you don't. You start reading something you think is a procedural, you think it's one thing, and then halfway through the script, the rug will get pulled out from under you, and suddenly it becomes something else entirely, and you're like, oh my God. Hence Barbarian, hence Strange Darling. These are movies that Roy discovered and found. Hence Weapons. So I start reading Seven, and it was a really well-written script. I loved Mills and Somerset. They were great characters, and they were going after this. And in the script, just to be honest, in the script for Seven, it was much more pulpy. Like, it was much more, the murders were really bombastic. I'd call them that. That's the way I remember it. You have to remember, I read the script in 1990, 5 years before it came out. And it was very much... It was much more heightened the way I remembered it. At least in my mind, that's the way I saw it. But, like one of those great Roy Lee scripts, halfway through the script, John Doe turns himself in. And I was like, that was the moment I'm like, oh my God. I had no, that was something new. I'd never come across that before, that here's this killer they're looking for, and he'd been watching the whole time, and he turned himself in. I couldn't believe it. And I knew I had no idea. I'm reading this, I love serial killer stories. I've always loved serial killer stories ever since I read Red Dragon, which was, of course, Michael Mann made that, and then Brett Ratner remade it, and then Brian Fuller did another remake that was actually quite brilliant in the third season of Hannibal. So I'm reading this script, and I thought I knew. I'd read so many serial killer stories, whether it was Thomas Harris, whether it was Michael Slade, Shane, who wrote By Reason of Insanity. I forget. That was another great book. I got it around here somewhere. But so I'm reading this script, and I was like, no way. And then I kept reading it. And when I got to the end of 7, I was fucking floored. I was floored. I absolutely, I was gobsmacked. And then I went back and did something I never did. I read it again. And that's what you want. That's what everybody who's looking to buy a screenplay, to make a screenplay, that's the response that you have. Now, I would say this, I've told this people a million times, that this is the only script ever that I read professionally, and I read over 3,000 scripts professionally. This was the only script that I ever read as a professional story analyst that I did this for. It was the only one that came across my desk that I found. I went, oh my God. And I wrote this really long, impassioned piece of coverage. Now, you're not supposed to say in coverage, yes, this movie has to be made. You have to make this movie. You have to do this. And I did. I wrote this, and I ran into work the next day. And I worked for the head of our department was a guy named Matt Tabak. And why am I drawing a blank on his name? The guy that I worked, Kevin Messick. And Kevin Messick cut me a lot of slack. Thank you, Kevin. You're a very nice guy. Because, I was always late getting in pieces of coverage because and because you'd have to send them, and sometimes they'd need them at like 3 o'clock, and I would turn it in at 4 o'clock. And because I would take time writing the coverage. But anyway, that doesn't matter. That means you can't do your job. And and it was great because Kevin Messick was one of these guys. He's a producer now. You knew that he was going to be successful. He just had that aura about him. And my friend Wayne Mogilevsky and Wayne kind of got me the job at Silver Pictures. We had a nickname for Kevin Messick, and we called him the Handshake Man, because you just knew that if he shook your hand, something would happen. Like, Kevin Messick was going to make deals and make them happen. He's going to go far. But at the time, he was a creative executive at Silver Pictures. He hadn't become a producer yet. But Matt Tabak was a different kind of guy entirely. So for 2 weeks, I kept calling Matt Tabak, and I was like, you've got to read 7. You've got to read 7. You've got to read 7. Have you read 7 yet? And then I got a phone call. Now, you have to remember, to me, I thought finding a piece of material like 7 meant that I would get promoted. I would become a creative executive, but I could barely hold on to the reader job. And Matt Tabak called me. I'll never forget this. He probably doesn't even remember this. I haven't talked to him since then anyway. So I saw him at a screening of the Madonna documentary that Warren Beatty was in. That was the last time I saw him in Los Feliz. And he called me up and he said, listen, I'm in New York and I'm meeting with Andy Kevin Walker. And I just want you to know I'm going to take credit for 7 and I don't want you to talk about it anymore. And this is, look, this is his prerogative. He was the head of the story department or whatever at the time. So I was just hoping that somebody would recognize I could tell what scripts were good and I would get a bump up, it was then I realized I lost all my enthusiasm for my job, and I lost that job soon after because I knew that I was not going to go anywhere at Silver Pictures. I loved being there. I felt very triumphant when I went back to Silver Pictures in 2007 and I brought in a script that I developed, The Hills Run Red, with Dave Parker and with Dave Scow, and we got to make that movie for Dark Castle Entertainment, their first original for the Warner premiere and Dark Castle Entertainment, their direct-to-video. I know it's direct-to-video. Could have gone more, but we were the first original that they had made. We were also the last original they'd made because they folded up that department, which was a bummer. Story of my career. But hey, if you find the Scream Factory Blu-ray. But it was cool to go back to Silver Pictures and make a movie there. To be the producer of Hills Run Red and have Joel Silver be my executive producer. That was pretty cool. But anyway, so Seven, it took 5 years for Seven to get made. Because no one liked the ending. We all know the ending. What's in the box? Everybody wanted that ending changed. Everybody. And now, in the same year that I read Seven, Alien 3, or maybe Alien 3 came out in 91. But Alien 3 came out soon after I had read Seven. And David Fincher was like so wounded from the experience of making Alien 3, which, by the way, if you've never heard the tale of the making of Alien 3, you have to go. You have to watch my friend Charlie de Lauzirika's documentary on the Alien Anthology. Get the Alien Anthology. It has not come out in 4K yet, but his Alien, the making of Alien documentaries, Charlie made some of the finest special feature documentaries ever made, and one of the most fascinating ones is the one he made on the unmaking of Alien 3. And what's really interesting is some fans went back and even took this even further this year. But the assembly cut of Alien 3 was first finished for the Blu-ray in the Alien Anthology. So go pick that up, watch the documentary on Alien 3, and you can see the horror that David Fincher faced. But he hadn't made a movie in 5 years. But he was the one that stuck to his guns and said, we have to keep this ending. The what's in the box, the Gwyneth Paltrow's, spoiler alert, I'm going to spoil the movie. If you haven't seen Seven, first of all, if you're watching this channel right now and you're watching me and you haven't seen Seven, shame on you. And turn this off right now and go watch Seven before you listen to me say anything further. Because you really need to experience it. Because it is one of the finest films, call it crime thriller, call it serial killer. It is at the very top of that genre. Some people might say Silence of the Lambs is the best of that genre. I would dare say that while that's a wonderful movie, best picture, best actress, best actor, never going to take anything away from Silence of the Lambs. But having read the book first, I found it slightly unfulfilling, especially the sort of bait and switch they do at the end when Jodie Foster winds up at James Gunn's door. That I didn't like that. I know I understand why it was done. But I would say that Seven, the only thing about Seven is, Seven, I think it's one of the finest films of its type ever made, but it doesn't have the delicious fun of Silence of the Lambs. I mean, it is singularly, you're taking a deep dive into the muck of human depravity when you watch Seven. And it is not like, and you know what? God bless David Fincher for putting Richard Roundtree. Yes, that's right. Richard Roundtree is in Seven. And Leland Orser is in Seven. And if you want to see, there's a great, well, I wouldn't call it great. There's a ripoff of Seven called Resurrection that stars Leland Orser and Christopher Lambert. Or Lambert. It's Lambert, right? Lambert. Christopher Lambert, because he's French. If you haven't seen Resurrection, it's like the C version of Seven, but it's pretty fucking good. And Russell Mulcahy directed it, who directed Duran Duran videos before he directed Razorback. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Seven. So when I saw it, it was a movie that kind of like The Long Walk that I just saw that Roy Lee produced. I had such high expectations that it couldn't possibly meet them. But I was aware from the very beginning, the way it was, the Howard Shore score, the way it was filmed, seeing that in the theater, the way it was the film, it was re-silvered, the process. It was on the Laserdisc, how they did all the color timing with the film. Unbelievable. Kyle Cooper did and his company Imaginary Forces did those opening credits, which to this day, the opening credits for Seven, there is an argument to be made that they're the greatest opening credits for any movie ever. I mean, depending on what your jam is, like I always say, I'm not everyone's jar of jam, but some people might like the opening credits of Superman more. You know, I understand that. But in terms of Seven and using 9 Inch Nails, a remix of 9 Inch Nails, I mean, it was just, come on. And then using The Heart's Filthy Lesson, using Bowie on the end titles, amazing. But when I saw Seven, I at first I wasn't blown away by it because of the tone. I saw it much more as a much more pulpy movie. And it was so much to take in, and it was so relentless, but the vision was there. And I've come to, I mean, I go back to Seven many, many, many times. And it means, the film means a great deal to me on a number of levels. The craftsmanship and what David Fincher did and what was able to do when he decides to use handheld cameras, when he decides to go into daylight, which is the seventh circle of hell, if you know your Dante. It is an amazing piece of work. One of the finest movies of the 90s, and when it came out the same year as Usual Suspects. Good year. By the way, happy 60th birthday to Bryan Singer. He turned 60 on the 17th. One of my oldest friends, certainly one of my oldest friends in the business, and one of my oldest friends in Los Angeles. And we texted on his birthday as he was busy boy. He was at a sound mix. He was at a Dolby Atmos sound mix. I guess I can say it, for his new movie. Anyway, that's a different story for another day. But it stars Jon Voight. And seeing Seven it blew me away. And then, of course, Seven came out as a prestigious Laserdisc from the Criterion Collection, which was an unbelievable disc. Then, of course, it came out as a New Line DVD when it came out. And I finally have it on 4K. I have it on a 4K Steelbook. So, I've owned it in multiple formats. And Seven has been a very important film to me. Not just because I had read the script, but because the filmmaking has inspired me for 30 years. And, Fincher goes on from Seven to make The Game, and it was just Fight Club, incredible. He became an incredible filmmaker now, of course, Mindhunter, and I love the fact that Fincher is doing a Quentin Tarantino, an extension of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. The Cliff Booth story. How crazy is that? But Fincher, in terms of what he meant to the 90s, I think that his contributions are immeasurable. And I found an article on Medium. I don't just go to Medium. The thing about Medium is I never know what I'm going to find as far as somebody writing. And I'll tell you something. I went to Medium just to see if somebody had written an article about the 30th anniversary of Seven. Just to see. I was like, I wonder if somebody is passing or is recognizing this anniversary. So someone had. And I'm going to share the article with you right now. And again, this comes from Medium. And it's written by James A. Gill, and it was published on September 6th. So the actual anniversary of the movie is September 22nd, which is Monday. But here's the article. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. I hate it when it does that. I really don't like how they have changed these browsers and they make these clickable things. I just don't like this. Anyway, Seven, the serial killer chase as existential conundrum. David Fincher's seminal serial killer procedural is more of a parable about how hope and idealism cope against evil. I mean, come on, I read that like catnip for me. By the way, again, if you've never seen Seven ever, please come back to this episode after you've watched the movie. I mean, I hope I won't still be live, but one never knows. And they warn you, this essay contains major spoilers for Seven. If we catch John Doe and he turns out to be the devil, if he's Satan himself, that might live up to our expectations. But he's not the devil. He's just a man. That was Detective William Somerset said that. I don't believe you're quitting because you believe the things you say. I don't. I think you want to believe them because you're quitting. You want me to agree with you, and you want me to say, yeah, you're all right. It's all fucked up, but I won't. I won't say that because I don't agree with you. I do not. I can't. Detective David Mills. That's, of course, Brad Pitt, and Morgan Freeman was Detective William Somerset. And by the way, I did not see, like, I don't remember in the script. I remember reading the script and not knowing that Detective Mills was black. Casting Morgan Freeman, it was Somerset. Detective Somerset was black. Casting Morgan Freeman in that role, and I'm sure, I don't know if this is true or not, but Morgan Freeman, the character of Red that he plays in in the short story, The Shawshank Redemption, is called in the book in different seasons Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption. But in The Shawshank Redemption, the character of Red is a white Irish dude. I'm convinced that maybe I'm wrong. I don't know if this is true or not. I don't know if it's seen. After watching The Shawshank Redemption, I want to believe that David Fincher said Morgan Freeman has got to play Detective Somerset. Because it was a time nobody, by the way, I've often said when people talk about DEI and all this ridiculousness, nobody would ever have said, oh, Morgan Freeman got these roles because he was black. No. When you watch Seven, his color is immaterial. It has nothing to do with the soulfulness, the way when you see one of the great things about Seven is how David Fincher made Detective Somerset just impeccably well dressed, a man of incredible taste. There's a great scene in Seven that I love it so much when he goes to the library, and I think they shot it in the downtown LA library. And like all the janitors and the security guards, they're all playing cards and listening to music and smoking cigars. And Detective Somerset comes in and he's like, gentlemen, you're surrounded by the great works of humanity in here. And you're just playing cards, but then they play this beautiful piece of classical music. I love that scene. So I love the way it's shot, and he goes and gets all the books. I mean, to me, it's almost pornographic. Although porn, that word means without feeling. Whatever the opposite of pornographic is, watching somebody roam around a library and getting all these books and flip through them, let me just say it got my blood pumping, if you know what I mean. Anyway, now let's get to the article. These are some of the lines exchanged between the heroes of David Fincher's classic 1995 feature Seven, as they have a heart-to-heart conversation late in the film. It is a scene that contrasts considerably in tone and mood to the more memorably horrific and gory scenes in the film. This scene may well be the most important, if not the most moving, in a film largely known for its bleak, macabre, and unforgiving atmosphere. As a moment of respite for the audience, the scene demonstrates how well Detective Mills and William Somerset complement each other, David Mills and William Somerset, despite their many superficial differences. Released in September of 1995, David Fincher's Seven proved to be a sleeper hit of 1995, overall, and appropriately, the seventh highest grossing film of 1995. It was a critical smash and a redemptive feature film success for Fincher after the very mixed results of his film debut, Alien 3. Andrew Kevin Walker's screenplay also received a BAFTA nomination for Best Original Screenplay. It is also, alongside 1991's The Silence of the Lambs, considered the defining serial killer feature of the 1990s, forging a considerable impact on the genre going forward. I would argue that both movies are the pinnacles of the genre. For what it's worth, this author considers Seven the superior feature to The Silence of the Lambs, as does this reader. Both features are classics in their observation of the monstrousness that characterizes serial killers and their motivations. However, Seven has the edge with its existential depth. The Silence of the Lambs is a feature about the dangers and risks New Blood must take to see a grisly investigation and chase through to its conclusion. In Seven, the chase, the killer, the city, and the detectives are all conduits for a deeper examination of how forces of good, idealism, and hope survive and engage with evil. That evil takes the form of one of the most frighteningly meticulous screen villains in history. Seven takes place across the last 7 days that William Somerset, Morgan Freeman, has as a homicide detective before he retires. A detective of 34 years' experience in an unnamed city, he is meticulous, committed, and dignified. However, he feels worn down by the bleak, wet dreariness that surrounds him. He spends the week with his replacement, David Mills. Mills recently moved to his city with his wife Tracy, who's played by Gwyneth Paltrow, who lacks her husband's zeal for taking on the city and is a youthful idealist. A detective with 5 years' experience, he is determined to do some good in a city that has crime and indifference dripping out of its pores. The detectives find themselves investigating a series of elaborate murders inspired by the 7 deadly sins. As they continue the search for the killer before he completes his series of 7, Mills and Somerset find their worldviews tested by each other and the case. What makes Seven such a gripping and compelling watch is just how well it manifests the question of good against evil through such well-written, incredibly conveyed characters. Remember, Andy Kevin Walker was a young man when he wrote this. And how I wish that the people who wrote Star Trek had one iota of his talent in their little fingers. But they do not. Detective Mills and Somerset are not merely avatars. One can feel the strength of their worldviews clashing in a world that is constantly strewn with rain and aesthetic misery. Two characters who seem so immediately obvious in their differences are revealed to be mutually compatible as they take on evil, even if one ultimately faces a devastating downfall and another remains resolute. Detective Mills and Somerset represent idealism and hope, respectively. The distinction? Idealism is a sense of believing things will get better, albeit naively, and goodwill will definitely triumph over evil. Hope is the ability to fight through challenging and oppressive circumstances to make a positive impact. It's not driven by a belief in the definitive triumphing of good over evil. Rather, hope is accepting the world as it is and doing what you can to try and make a positive impact within it, as well as maintaining one's own integrity in the face of a generalized apathy toward evil. When the characters first appear together, it is immediately striking how Mills' eagerness and cockiness contrasts with Somerset's patient and stern authority. It's clear that these two men are initially going to butt heads in a way that initially seems formulaic. However, Seven reveals qualities the detectives share despite their temperamental differences. Both are committed and thorough policemen, determined to do as good a job as they can. For all of Somerset's rhetorical cynicism, his sheer commitment to his job, even as he bleeds a sense of disillusioned exhaustion, undermines the cynical aesthetic that he puts up. In the words of his police captain, R. Lee Ermey, Somerset was made for this job. There's no denying that. His decision to attend to dinner with Mills and Tracy at their apartment underscores a man who evidently cares for a couple new to the unwelcoming city. Not to mention the library research that he conducts on the literary and religious inspirations that the killer may have. Mills respects Somerset. Despite his initial frustration at Somerset's condescension and distance, Mills does feel that he'll learn something from a man who's been in the city too long. Mills does not put his foot down about inviting a disagreeable colleague to dinner because he respects him. Tracy completes Mills. They share a deep love, and she believes in her husband. Her support of Mills and the belief that he can make a difference help lead him to take a law enforcement job in an oppressive, crime-strewn city. The union of Mills and Tracy is a marked contrast to Somerset's solitary resoluteness. Though her screen time is brief, Seven does a good job of conveying the commitment Mills and Tracy have to each other. They hold hands as Somerset asks them how they like living in the city, and it's very clear that this is a couple whose sense of strength is found in each other. Mills's essence is a joyful idealism sustained by his marriage. In the third act, Mills hugs Tracy in bed as he whispers that he loves her so much. They need each other to survive in this world. By contrast, Somerset has built up a solitary resilience to withstand the draining surroundings of this hellish city without the need for a companion. He lives alone and is quite content, studying in nocturnal solitude to the strings of Bach's Suite No. 3 in D major. He shares an anecdote with Tracy about convincing a former partner to abort a baby, which presumably ended their relationship, and it's a testament to the strength of his convictions. Yet Somerset still harbors regret about not having the child and starting a family. As if passing on advice from being the father he never was, Somerset tells tells Tracy to spoil that baby every chance she gets. Even though he has been worn down by years of cultural indifference of a crime-ridden city, Somerset still gives advice that provides hope to a woman uncertain about the future. Subtle changes in the dynamic between Mills and Somerset occur throughout the film. During the first half of the film, until the Sloth murder, Mills is enthusiastically leading the investigation. Somerset is no slouch, but his deep thought and forensic knowledge seem to merely be in the service of the last duty rather than the work of a man relishing the prospect of capturing the killer. While Somerset muses that they're merely picking up the pieces of a case which may never be solved, Mills tells Somerset that he felt that rush as they proceed with the case. Immediately after the Sloth murder, we see Somerset and Mills letting off steam. This time around, we notice an urgency in Somerset as he tells the frustrated Mills that they must divorce themselves from their emotions and remain clinical in their focus on catching the killer. Mills defiantly retorts that he feeds on his emotions, before impulsively attacking an invasive photographer. An unimpressed Somerset remarks that it's impressive to see someone feeding off their emotions. Though this scene may appear another example of headbutting between the detectives, it also foreshadows Seven's conclusion of how much, despite his boyish energy and enthusiasm, Mills is in over his head in a world that the wise, dignified Somerset knows all too well. Rewatching this scene with the knowledge of the identity of the photographer, it strikes me as the ultimate evil, testing the waters to decide how to complete the 7 murders. During the film's horrifying climax, we see the ultimate demonstration of Mills feeding on his emotions. Unable to divorce himself from his feelings of devastation, grief, and wrath, he furiously avenges Tracy and joins the massive chaos and violence he once fought against. The sight of a shell-shocked and despairing Mills after killing the killer is the sight of a man who has not just lost his wife, but has lost a sense of who he was in this unforgiving world. The crashing of untested idealism when confronted with an evil it could not contemplate. Somerset's final words to the police captain, "Around, I'll be around," and to the audience, Ernest Hemingway wrote that the world is a fine place and worth fighting for. I agree with the second part. Register as a commitment to carry on fighting the good fight in honor of his defeated partner. Having been re-energized by the vigor and determination of Mills, Somerset marches on, dignified and untainted. He's back to where he was at the start of the film. Rather than leaving the force, this time he chooses to remain with renewed resolve. Given that Mills and Somerset personify idealism and hope respectively, it's important to give an emphasis to their foe, the serial killer John Doe, played by Kevin Spacey. Though he only fully reveals himself at the start of the film's concluding act, his presence looms large over the preceding 2 acts. John Doe is a paradox. He is simultaneously unremarkable and extraordinary, as well as being a mixture of meticulous focus and chaotic fury. The very name John Doe is a name assigned to designate male anonymity, or as a convenient label for a person whose real identity is yet to be identified. Even Doe's reply to Somerset asking of who he really is irrelevant. It's the message that matters. Given the Catholic paraphernalia that adorns his home and the nature of his crimes, it seems that Doe sees himself as a prophet of sorts. However, the crimes committed by Doe are anything but run-of-the-mill. Whether it's keeping a man bound to a bed for a year, serving an obese man food until he ate himself to death, or tailing a prostitute and commissioning a sexual performance blade, these are the crimes of a man of extraordinary talent. With such meticulousness and organization must also come order and discipline. Yet this discipline seems at odds with Doe's living quarters. Dank, squalid, and filled with volumes of his mind written across journals, his apartment seems more akin to the stereotypical madman that Mills profiles the killer. Even though Doe is careful not to leave his fingerprints anywhere, his apartment is a paean to disturbed devotion and a blackness of heart and mind. The opening credits of the film, underscored brilliantly with a remix of 9 Inch Nails' Closer, capture the contradiction of chaos and meticulousness that characterizes Doe. While he is never identified, we are given glimpses into how prepared and thorough he is in putting the foundations of his plan for his spree into action. This is played against a backdrop of industrial percussiveness that only conjures up a sense of chaos and disorder. John Doe is a creature of the chaotic disorder of the crime-ridden city, but he maintains a sense of precision and focus that makes his evil all the greater. Doe is also in many ways a mirror inversion of Somerset. a form of evil worthy of his time and talents. Though he's never seen committing his murderous acts, Doe has a clearly meticulous focused and driven, is as clearly meticulous, focused, and driven for evil as Somerset is for good. He also seems to share, albeit in a contorted and malign manner, Somerset's disillusionment at the world around him. But rather than use his considerable talents for good, Doe reflects the horror of the city. Chaos regurgitated in the form of alarmingly precise and structured evil. An evil that idealism does not have a chance against, but hope can withstand. As an examination of how goodness can fail or prevail in the face of evil, Seven has lost none of its original punch. The atmosphere of bleak oppressiveness and urban suffocation crafted by David Fincher and his crew is timeless. With such a script and presentation undiluted in its depiction of depravity, Seven proved to be a surprise hit in 1995. It struck a chord with audiences back then and continues to do so. Seven might very well have a stronger resonance and urgency in today's world. The 1990s were a decade generally known for benign economic conditions alongside a sense of fun and self-confidence, whatever the stereotypes about Gen X cynicism. The 2020s have thus far been marked by a sense of dysfunction, insecurity, and despair. Perhaps when faced with consistent and various dark abysses, the time has come to revisit a masterful observation of how good can sustain itself in the face of ever-contorting evil. For all the nastiness in the world, it is definitely worth fighting for. There's a very strange creature outside the Robservatory that's making odd noises I've never heard, and my dogs are going crazy. That would be a battle royale to see. But I thought this was a great article that captured, I mean, you know, when you look at something like Seven, it is exactly everything that I think the art of cinema, now it's not for everybody, obviously, but it's everything that the art of cinema is able to do that no other art form can do. Sure, you can look at paintings of someone like Francis Bacon or something and feel something from an image. But what Seven is able to do through its literary script, the literary-minded script of Andy Kevin Walker, who was very young when he wrote it, but there was a maturity, obviously this article captured it, that is in every frame of the film. And then when you had a meticulous filmmaker, I think part of the reason clearly David Fincher, with his meticulous nature, was attracted to both John Doe as a character and to Detective Somerset as a character, because even though one is perpetrating evil and one is fighting on the side of good, the meticulous nature of Fincher making the movie accentuated both characters. And it was a perfect example of a director, because who knew? You know, after Alien 3, you can still see when you watch Alien 3, especially if you watch the assembly cut, what a craftsman David Fincher really is. And he has a very specific style. There is no other filmmaker who comes close to what David Fincher can do. It's incredible. And I mean, I would consider Seven Fincher's theatrical. It's maybe not fair, but he kind of disowns Alien 3. And when you watch, I think it's called Rape and Ruin, which is the name of the documentary on the making of it, you can see how much of a craftsman he is, and it's too bad that he wasn't allowed to stay on the film, and that it was basically taken away from him. It was a tragedy. But the comeback, I mean, he could have left the business and never come back. But Seven is him roaring back to life and giving us, you know, I consider Seven not necessarily a crime procedural. I consider it more of a horror film. It's sort of a hybridization, the way Alien is both a monster movie and a science fiction film. Seven, I think, and it was much emulated and copied. Like I said, that Resurrection, another biblically themed serial killer movie that Leland Orser is in. It was so influential. I still marvel at it 30 years later, and it's why I love movies so much. And if you've never seen it, do yourself a favor and see it. And if you can, watch on the best screen possible with a great surround sound system. The new 4K disc that came out is a banger. And people might ask, well, Rob, what do you think of the little CG fixes that David Fincher made? I have no problem with them because there were things as a perfectionist. There were places where rain was falling, and there were places where rain wasn't falling in the frame, and he went back and fixed those things, and he added like more power cables or at the end of the film, which I think play into it. If you know the movie, you'll know that he added. But if it is truly the ninth circle of hell, it just made the landscape even more hellish. So I don't have a problem with the little fixes he did on the 4K. I don't. Some people, you should be a purist, Rob. But you know what? Not everything is always the same. So really, really good stuff. And I just wanted to do, I love the movie so much. And I figured, I could bang on tonight about something I don't like. I wanted to talk about something I adore, even though it's not a very pleasant movie. I still love it so much. And you just love those characters. And it's a wonderful film, and 30 years later, it's lost none of its power, and it really speaks to the enduring power of cinema as an art form and as a storytelling medium. And you had such a young screenwriter, and of course he went on to write, Andy Kevin Walker, to write things like Sleepy Hollow. He wrote he wrote a script that Panos Cosmatos is supposed to direct, and I read it, thanks to Roy Lee, and it like disappeared. It's a vampire script that's wild, man. Wild. And Panos Cosmatos was supposed to, and Oscar Isaac and Kristen Stewart were going to star in it. I want to say it was called Flesh of the Beast, but it's not called that. I forget what it's called. But they were supposed to make it. It was in the trades. I'd read the script. Boy, I'd love to see that get made. And as an aside, this is kind of a strange, interesting thing. So Gavin Polone, who's Andy Kevin Walker's manager, I think he probably still is. Andy Kevin Walker wrote a script called Psycho Killer that Gavin Polone directed that is kind of in purgatory right now. Maybe one day somebody will recut it and we'll be able to see it, and I'd be very curious. But yeah, and I really want to see that vampire movie. So whatever it's called, I really want to know. You know what? I will. Maybe I should look it up. Let's see. Well, I'll look it up later. Anyway, Panos Cosmatos, who directed like Beyond the Black Rainbow. He directed that Nicolas Cage movie, Mandy. He was going to direct this movie. So if you looked up Panos Cosmatos, Oscar Isaac, Kristen Stewart, you could find out what this vampire movie is that Andy Kevin Walker wrote. And it was a wild script. It's like set in the 80s. It's in LA. Like, it's some craziness. But anyway, let's see what you all have to say, if anybody has chimed in. And let's see what you have to say. What do people say? So let's start and go to the top. DL has been a member. By the way, I've got some letters to read coming up, so get to those. DL has been a member for 50 months. There is a member call tomorrow. Just remind you, all of you members, if you're a member of the channel and have never been to a member call, we do them on Saturdays. They last for hours. I think I can only do it for 3 hours tomorrow. But yeah, they're a lot of fun. So if you're a member of the channel, we all get together. You have to be a member. And you can see the clip on the community tab, the link where to go. So check it out. So there you go. And so DL's been a member for 50 months. DL goes on to say, Rob, I signed up for a class with Chris for voice acting, at least to see if I could be decent at it. I also sent you an email about my attendance for the World of Hans Zimmer concert. Love this show. Long live the Post-Geek Singularity. Well, thank you very much. I'll have to look for that letter. I don't think I read it. Jurassic Joey has been a member for 17 months. Thomas Logan says, Bobster, are you becoming Star Trek? Metamorphosis? No, I don't have a companion in my life like that. I am not the man, as she says, but I hope I'm not turning into Star Trek, although that would be interesting. Royston S. Bailey says, you are my Star Trek hero. I wish you were running it all instead of Klutzman the Putz. Live long and prosper. Well, thank you, Royston. I appreciate that. Problem is, I don't have any, even if somebody came and bequeathed me with the reins to control the entire Star Trek franchise. I've never worked in TV before. Not like that. I mean, I've directed 5 episodes of Femme Fatales, but I've never worked with a writer's room. I've never done all that. I think I could run. The problem with doing a Star Trek show, I could direct Star Trek episodes. I could direct episodes fine. I could cut them together. I could make all that work. But what I would really want to do is get into the writer's room. And I'm not a member of the WGA. I've never even written a TV script before. But if I could consult and be the script consultant, the story guru, that I could do. And just kind of push people in a direction and be like, no, you're not going to rip off Dr. Roger Corby. You're not going to rip off Trelane. Stay away from all that crap. That's what I would tell people. What is our version of that? Let's create a new character, Dr. Roger Corby, that isn't necessarily, don't use all those shortcuts. One of the things I can't stand about Strange New Worlds is they use everything as a crutch. They don't have any original ideas. So, we need a big bad, so we'll just use the Gorn. Well, in doing that, you destroy the Gorn episode, you destroy Arena because you ruin the continuity. You destroy what they're doing is they've literally destroyed all of TOS's story continuity. Why not the Gorn? Clearly, in the episode Arena from TOS, it's the first time they meet the Gorn. SNW just took it. They just stole the Gorn. They literally stole the Gorn, and they ruined the Gorn. They turned them into xenomorphs, and it was all unoriginal, and it wasn't. They could have done a really interesting thing and created a really compelling lizard species, but instead they just had to make them look like xenomorphs with they pop out of human hosts and all. It's terrible. How to D&D says, "Hi Rob, I'm here to listen to what you love or like about movies and television. The Grok Rob list of 10 faults is correct. I need your positivity." Well, here I am. I'm giving you some positivity. I love Seven. Royston S. Bailey says, "You never grift. That hatchet job is nonsense." Well, but see, people think that. It's very interesting. I think one of the things that has been that I think human beings are complex, and in our day and age, everybody. I'll give an example. When I was working on the Schmodown, and as again, I love Mark Ellis and Christian Harloff, but when I was working on the Schmodown, at first it started out as this kind of fun lark we did at Collider. Wasn't, am I being squelched? No. We did a Collider, and Christian told me I didn't know much about wrestling, so he said, look up Ric Flair. You should be a heel. I didn't even know the difference between a heel or a babyface or what. So be a heel and look at Ric Flair. And I had this jacket hanging in my closet I hadn't worn in 20 years. So I was this screaming, yelling character. So I would go to the studio and do my character and leave. I never fraternized with people. It was just I'd go to work and do this. So I think there was a point where I made one tweet during the BLM riots, and I saw something I thought was horrifying, and I put a video, and I was making a comment. I was trying to be ironic, as if I made a comment about there was a man, Captain David Dorn, former black police captain, who was on the sidewalk, murdered. And there was a video, and I had made a comment about where was a Second Amendment advocate when this man needed one, shoot to kill. But I was angry, but it went with the video. So people I work with, a person I work with, did not retweet what I said. They remade a tweet and said, I said this, without the video connected to it. And it was clearly, I was clearly outraged that a father of 5 and a grandfather of 10 who was protecting a pawn shop because the pawn shop had guns inside of it was killed. And then the pawn shop was robbed. And somebody I work with was accusing me of saying that I was advocating killing looters, which I thought was, first of all, I thought it was weird because the video, I didn't realize at first that they had not just retweeted the video that I put, because that was the thing that horrified and disturbed me the most. But then people started coming after me, and people I was working with at Collider that I pretty much liked, were calling me a garbage person. And I'm like, you don't even know me, and how did you find this out? No, but it was very weird, and it was a big thing. I had to go apologize for all this. And what was interesting, though, the thing that I learned at the time was the people that I work with, some of them And I'd like to think that it was the character that I was playing, which was screaming and yelling, and they never took the time to get to know me at all as a person. They didn't know anything about me personally. And I found that out because one day afterwards, somebody sat down with me, one of the girls who worked there, and said, "You've produced movies and stuff." And I'm like, "Yep." "Well, how come none of us know that?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't come in and tell you what I did for the last 20 years. I come in here to do my job at Collider, to be on the Schmodown, and I scream and I yell because Christian told me to be like Ric Flair, and then I leave." And that was my thing. But there were people there that really didn't like me, and I didn't know that. And I wish that maybe if we'd all gone out to lunch or something one day, people would have. But it was interesting that nobody knew, but they went after me, and it became a problem. Like the intent was to hurt me, to hurt I wasn't really getting paid or anything, but nobody really knew that. They just wanted me out, well, for whatever reason. And I learned a lesson. It taught me that we now live in a world, like I would never, based on something somebody said, I would never like go after somebody like that. I mean, look, I'll go after Star Trek writers because they're writing Star Trek. They're getting paid very well, and they're putting their work out to be reviewed. And for me, since I've been watching Star Trek my entire life, I have no problem going, this should be much better. Especially when we have For All Mankind, and we have Foundation, and we have Severance, and we have so many great TV shows. We have Black Mirror, the new season of Black Mirror, when the USS Callister episode for this season's Black Mirror is better than Star Trek. I don't have a problem going after that because that work is put out there, and I blame the writers because the writing is where it begins, and you blame the producers, but. Personally, they're getting paid. I have no power to take away their jobs. So maybe I'm hyperbolic or whatever, but their show sucks. And most reviewers are coming around, even people that are very, I watch Jessie Gender's reviews, and she is usually she's pretty respectful, and she was respectful of Discovery, and she liked seasons 1 and 2 of Strange New Worlds. Even they were losing her. And because the episodes, they're lazy and they're poorly written, and they have an over-reliance on other people's work that they're stealing from. And I'll say stealing. They're stealing from it. And then they're just turning it into whatever. So, but it was interesting to know that we now live in a world where people, if they don't like what you say, they'll come after you. And that, to me, words, as we saw graphically illustrated last week with Charlie Kirk, words are not violence. Violence is violence. And it was something that, it was a lesson. That assassination, because it was probably the most well-documented assassination in history, because so many people had their cameras up. And the reason is, I just don't like what you have to say. And the fact that because social media allows us to think that we know people, and we now live in a world, and we live in an America where political violence has suddenly been re-energized. Obviously, you go back, political violence has been here since the very beginning. We've had presidents assassinated, but it's unfortunate to see that the ultimate example of where our modern age has taken us is those people that believe that they are aggrieved or hurt by words and feel that gives them the right to go out and commit actual murder. In their minds, they think it's justified. It's too bad. I hate that we live in this world. Drew Skizzy says, "Blessing to you, Rob." Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That's very nice. Royston Bailey says, "Nogg's better characterization than anything in Klutz Trek." Oh, none of these people have watched Deep Space Nine. Clearly, no one who was ever involved with anything written about Section 31 in Discovery, or that god-awful movie, ever watched the episodes. How do you watch the Section 31 episodes in Deep Space Nine and come up with the Section 31 that we got in Discovery and that movie? How do you... They never watched them. They just read somewhere that this is the intelligence division, so they're like, oh, it's like CIA or MI5. No, it's not. It's not. And how do you know that? Because of the way Section 31 was portrayed. They never went back and watched any of the episodes with Bill Sadler or Sloan. And that's how you can tell that I can say that those writers, they don't do their work. They don't do their homework. MTH says, Rob, neither you nor John have spoken on Alien Earth Episode 7. Are you still enjoying it, or are you finding the increasingly stupid character moments and actions an incredibly difficult hurdle to overcome? Good question. I did watch Alien Earth Episode 7. Here's my overall assessment of the show. The show is dealing with, like, it's post-human, transhumanism, the idea of human consciousness being put into android bodies. This is something, these are old, I mean, hell, the first season of Star Trek that they ripped off this season for Strange New Worlds, What Are Little Girls Made Of, deals with that issue. What if you could live forever in an android body? Would you do it? What does it mean for human consciousness? What does it mean for our soul? What I think is really, and I was talking with this about with my friend Alvaro today, what I find frustrating about this show is dealing with a lot of these science fiction concepts that are longtime staples of sci-fi, but they're presented in a very rudimentary manner. Like, and this is what I was talking about today, all these kids whose minds have been transferred into the body of these adult machines, they all act as if they're either autistic or not very smart. And I don't understand that. Kids aren't dumb. And they've really portrayed these characters, and I understand they were young characters, but if these characters all were suffering from terminal illnesses and diseases, nothing makes you grow up faster than having to deal with your own mortality and dealing with your friends and family around you when this kind of thing is going on. I know because I've seen it. And the portrayal has been very all over the place. And it's all been very... because the characters and the actions are so moronic a lot of the time. And they do things like suddenly Wendy can talk to a xenomorph. How is a just-born xenomorph how does it have a language? You know, wouldn't a xenomorph at least have to talk to another xenomorph to understand its language? And this is my problem with a lot of modern science fiction, is they ask you to believe in this conceit that suddenly through clicking and stuff, that animals or these things, but you're just born with a language that you know. Everyone knows that's not true. You can be born with things that are instinctual, but a language that a human being can learn and talk back, and you can get an alien to come up to you and go, I'm not going to hurt you, young man, seems absurd to me. So there's all of these ideas that I just don't buy. There's not a lot of verisimilitude in that show. I do like Kirsch. You know, I do like the way Timothy Oliphant's playing him, and Kirsch is playing everybody. But, you know, the idea, again, that why is it that in every iteration of Alien, there is an artificial, a synthetic that's evil? Like it's like a trope to the Alien movies. You know, and when they don't do it, like Bishop in Aliens, they play against the trope. Like, we think he's going to be evil, but, you know, the A2s always were a bit twitchy, you know, and all that. And I just, having read so much science fiction in my life, I want something that, and I love Noah Hawley's work. I really like Legion a lot. I just think that this show has all these really interesting ideas, but they've been presented in a pedestrian way that seem less pedestrian because most people haven't encountered a lot of these ideas before. But, you know, this whole, can transhumans or posthumans or whatever live in a world with all of these creatures? I mean, they haven't even spent time dealing with the ramifications of having these creatures on Earth. Like, they've brought these, and I can't help, I want to go back and watch. I watched the Andromeda Strain like 2 months ago when I got the Arrow 4K. It was sitting on a shelf for a long time, and I finally pulled it off and watched it. And you're like, wow, man, this movie's so smart. You know, it's like you watch a movie. Like, I love disease movies, And Alien is an adjunct of disease movies because the aliens are kind of like a disease. But you watch the Andromeda Strain. I think the two greatest disease movies, some people might say Outbreak. Outbreak's a lot of fun. I'm not going to deny it because give me cities ravaged by plague. That's why I like zombie movies and stuff, because they're also an adjunct of plague movies. But disease vectoring, Andromeda Strain's one of the greats, and I saw it as a kid. Maybe that's why I like disease movies. And then Contagion. Contagion, Steven Soderbergh's Contagion, another great disease movie. The remake of The Crazies, Brett Eisner's The Crazies is a pretty good, even though it's more of a nerve gas kind of a thing, but it's good too. But I'm not loving Alien Earth. I want to love it, but there's all these ideas that seem to be very rudimentary, and there's too much stupidity going on. If the show was full of these incredibly smart people, if all the scientists and everybody on the show were like on Andromeda Strain, and Kid Cavalier, it's like that guy, he's almost a mustache twirling villain. As Alvaro said today, he's more annoying than Jesse Eisenberg's Luthor was in Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. I mean, it's like when he comes in with no shoes and sits on... I don't believe somebody who's smart, who's dealing with protocol. I understand he was like, I'm saying fuck you to the council and all that, but it didn't ring true to me. It didn't ring true because what you're doing is you're kind of... there's something to be said for protocol and everything. It's just, you're telegraphing what a dumbass this kid is. I do like the idea. My favorite thing in the show is Oculus. And my favorite thing in all 7 episodes was when Kid Cavalier was going, do you understand the number? I mean, again, he writes down pi. He writes down our numerals and says, do you understand this? And the alien's like, yep. And he knows mathematics. Give me a fucking break. This alien creature knows our numerals. I didn't buy it. I look at that and go, how would he know the numerals? How would he know Earth numerals? You should have had like Kid Cavalier, like the sheep does. Kid Cavalier could go, do you know this number? And go 1, 2, 3. And then tap it out. And then the sheep taps it out, but they needed the audience to understand it's 3.14, it's pi. But I'm watching this going, dumbass, how is an alien creature supposed to know our written language? It's been running around a lab and it jumped into a sheep. And when I watch something like that, I'm like, I get it. They have to make the audience, well, is the audience going to understand that that was bad. And it made me angry. Because I'm like, there's no way he would know what you've written down. Do you know this number? He doesn't know what the word fucking number means. He doesn't know what that number is because he doesn't know our numerals. There's no universal translator telling him, oh, that's a 3. And that really bothered me. It did. But overall, I will say this. I tune in. The production value is great. And I do find it interesting. So I am trying to look beyond, because it's amazing to me that it even got made. And so I'm complaining about the rudimentary nature of it, and people do a lot of stupid shit in that show. That said, I want to be clear. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it because the aspirations of the show are way better than anything modern Star Trek's given us in the last 3 years of Strange New Worlds. I'll tell you that. So at least it's shooting for something. At least it's compelling food for thought. So there you go. Jason Webster says, like serial killer thrillers, Rob, I recommend K-dramas like 9 Puzzles, which is on Disney+, Queen Mantis, Through the Darkness, and Flower of Evil, all on Netflix. Yeah, some of those I've watched. Again, I like that. I mean, the Koreans have done some great serial killer stuff, and so have the Japanese. Like I just watched Cure the other day. Memories of Murder is a great real police procedural, but there's a lot of great serial killers. Like I Saw the Devil is a pretty intense. The Koreans know what's up, man. The Koreans know what's up. I'm a big fan of what they do. Mike Gallagher has been a member of the channel for 18 months. Well, I appreciate that, sir. And I hope you come to the member call tomorrow. And let me just jump over and see if anyone has left a tip. Yes, of course, 1001 Johnny's here. 1001 Johnny says, yes, same on me, Rob, but it is 1 a.m. and I don't feel like watching Spacey's bloody fingertips this morning. Well, Johnny, I can understand that. I understand where you are coming from. So listen, I have a few letters to read if you would like to hear them from viewers. And some of them even have photographic, let's see if I've got one here. I don't know where that went and why it didn't come up, but I will do that. And the first one, let's see who is the first letter. Who's first up? This one comes from Gavin Beard. Gavin Beard writes this and it says, "Hey Rob, I hope whenever you find this email you're doing well. I know life can just kick us all in the balls when we least expect it. So my wish is that everything is going good for you." I appreciate that. "This is just a personal email, not one I'm sending in for the show." Oh, well, I guess I can't read that. I don't want to read that if he doesn't want it for the show. I won't read that, so I'll go to another one. But thanks for writing in. I will get to that and read it. Now, this is interesting because, let's see. Because he wrote one version of the letter, and that was the non-redacted version, and then he wrote a redacted version and asked me to read the redacted version. So I'll read that. "Greetings, Rob. What follows may run a bit long, but I promise it's written in gratitude and enthusiasm, not expectation. I wanted to share what your work has meant to me. My name is Rocky, and I was born in 1981, which places me at 44 years old. Please forgive my parasocial behavior. This is truly out of the norm for me, as you'll see. Suffice to say, I hope and pray this finds you doing well. I just want to take a moment and acknowledge a sentiment that was spoken by Gary Beekler, Nerdrotic, though I do not pretend to know him. He said that it's a gift to us, the public, that you make yourself heard. I've been following you for at least 5 years, though now currently a member for 13 months as Mr. Z. Needless to say, it's been a treat, and you have my gratitude for whatever it's worth. My favorite word in the English language is verisimilitude. Introduced to me by William Somerset Maugham, perhaps my favorite man of letters. I am so happy that you include that word in every Robservations among so many things. Sadly, I suspect most of the public are not aware of its existence, let alone its meaning, at a time when it's needed more than ever. A bit about me, if you'll entertain it. I was born and raised in the city of Miami, though I more than slightly disdain it as its reputation precedes itself. Oh, come on, I love Miami. That is to say, in too many ways it lacks verisimilitude. That is true. But that's okay. I've been so fortunate in that I've earned but also have been afforded the luxury to live all over the world. Regardless if I may be so bold to suggest a compact without affirmation, I promise you this. We both park our starships in the same shuttle bay. Shuttlecrafts in the same shuttle bay. But you wrote starships. Starships wouldn't fit in the shuttle bay. But I appreciate you saying that. The Library of Alexandria has nothing on me, though in turn, and much more severely, I have nothing on it. I'm a staunch digital rights privacy advocate, which is in part why this is so foreign to me, but I feel that I must lay myself bare for once as I'm approaching a stranger to take up the most precious thing he has. I'm also an AI ethicist, historian, and lifelong futurist, technologist, formerly an art gallerist of some minor repute. In most part, a classical liberal and someone who cares deeply about the human condition. Since boyhood, I remember sitting in synagogue in the 6th grade at an incredible Jewish day school. It was there I resolved to live my life by the maxim, do unto others as you wish they would do unto you. I added a subclause, unless someone comes to do harm with ill intent to you and yours, in which case I'm compelled to respond as viciously as needed. This was because at that tender age I had already learned there were bad actors in this world. I'm proud to say that, though I have rarely failed at following these rules, for the largest part I've succeeded in abiding by them. These rules were formed in my mind when it all dawned on me while sitting in that synagogue. That was the year I came to the conclusion I was agnostic, being confronted with the fact that there were more than 2 religions on earth. I wasn't even aware of such a thing being true until then, sweet summer child though I was at the time. Compounded with other confusions, I had trouble accepting a God that would allow for such unfairness, to put people on earth who were not the chosen ones by sheer dint of being born in a different geography. Later in life, I'd find Mom put it better in words than I could in his autobiography. The summing up: every artist wishes to be believed in, but he is not angry with those who will not accept the communication he offers. God is not so reasonable. He craves so urgently to be believed in that you might think he needed your belief in order to reassure himself of his own existence. He promises rewards to those who believe in him and threatens with horrible punishment those who do not. For my part, I cannot believe in a God who is angry with me because I do not believe in him. I cannot believe in a God who is less tolerant than I. I cannot believe in a God who has neither humor nor common sense. Plutarch long ago put the matter succinctly. I would much rather, he writes, have men say of me that there never was a Plutarch, nor is now, than to say that Plutarch is a man inconsistent, fickle, easily moved to anger, revengeful for trifling provocations, and vexed at small things. But make no mistake, I'm proud of my Jewishness and will never dishonor that. At least in large part, it is in the memory of my grandparents on my mother's side, who were stripped of their entire and considerably large families to the ghastly chambers of the concentration camps. Thankfully, they both survived, though they instantly found themselves orphaned in the cruelest twist of fate imaginable. They found each other after the war, and the rest was history. On my father's side, his parents were able to escape what would have been a dastardly fate from Romania and Yemen, respectively. They settled in British Palestine, where he was born 2 years before the State of Israel gained its independence in 1948. All of that aside, oddly enough, I pray to God pretty much every day in my own way. Regarding the episode in the subject line, I heard you say that The Right Stuff was in your top 5 films, which struck me as a clarion's call to watch. So I had the pleasure of waking up the Sunday morning a day or so after that episode aired and relishing in it as prescribed. Having taken that in, I then reached for Barry Lyndon, which I, for some foolish reason, had never thought to watch, though I love Kubrick. It stood me in the face for quite some time. While enjoying that great film, I heard inverse echoes of Dr. Zhivago, a film that, in my opinion, is the rare exception that it vastly eclipses the book, for Pasternak was a poet writing a novel. Fun facts that I might surprise you know. As a professional editor with your consummate special edition extras on the Lord of the Rings trilogy, your advice to watch beloved films with the sound off, and so much more. I discovered when researching the movie that there was a NASA connection to the film. Kubrick wanted indoor scenes to be lit exactly as they would have been in the 1700s, by candlelight alone, but the problem was normal lenses couldn't capture enough light without looking muddy. His solution was sourcing 3 ultra-fast f/0.7 lenses made by Carl Zeiss for NASA. They were originally developed so astronauts could take photographs on the Apollo missions in extremely low light. Said lenses were modified and mounted onto Kubrick's cameras, making Barry Lyndon the only film ever shot that way. Incidentally, I was lucky to own a Hasselblad medium format camera with Zeiss lenses for optics, among others. But I digress. I then went to watch The Killing, but put a pin in it, instead finding my way to a choice of The Rocketeer, an indulgence of my boyhood delight, but instead, for whatever reason, I found my way to revisiting Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow for the second time. That was another one staring me in the face, though oddly enough I did not dive right into it. I recall vividly a bench at my local cinema where I'd sit reading Heavy Metal magazine at 13 and many of my favorite comic books over the years. That same bench stood beside the giant promo posters for Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow when it first came out. I'd had a crush on Angelina Jolie ever since Hackers, so you'd think I'd have seen it right away, but I didn't. I lingered by the posters instead. It took the world of another imagination connoisseur only a year ago to finally push me to watch it. And it turned out to be a wonder in a lightweight sense, both then and now. Some time has passed since I've written these words above, and I've had the delight of discovering on YouTube Star Trek Continues, which no doubt you've spoken about, but I had no idea just how good it was, and still is. Of all the fan fiction on film that I've ever seen, from the set design down to the lighting, the casting, the acting, the whole entire production, it was the most lockstep with my beloved TOS that I could ever wish for. Paramount should have called those guys up instead of fools such as Kurtzman and Goldsman from their terrible hideout. One last thing about me, I'm not a sycophant. There's no person that I know of whose every word is the holy gospel to me. I'm very happy to say that I believe that we agree on the vast majority of things, but there are some few things that we don't see eye to eye on. But the thing I love about someone like you is that I know if we sat down and broke bread together, not that I would ever come there in a spirit of debate, but if it ever happened on some point of contention, I know we would have respectful discourse. We would, as any manner of yours as well, and ultimately could agree to disagree and still go on our way with smiles on our faces and brotherly love in our hearts. I get the feeling you wouldn't have it any other way. You are correct with that, sir. As it is, now that I've gotten over all of the perhaps foolish pomp and circumstance, I come to the heart of the letter. Not yet? This is a great letter, by the way. Yeah, I'm a sucker. I'm drinking the great pumpkin beer from the people that make Space Dust. It's pretty good. I just saw it at the grocery store. I had to try it. Last night, I had the great pleasure of watching the Blu-ray of Colossus, the Forbin Project, which you spoke of on a recent Robservations, and highly, suggesting along with the Andromeda Strain. If by chance you're reading this on air, I must state that in the next paragraph there might be mid-level spoilers, just to warn the audience that may not have watched it, as I do not wish to ruin it for anyone. Listen, man, the movie came out in 1970. If people watching this channel have not seen Colossus, the Forbin Project, I would say, come on, man. Why haven't you? As an AI ethicist and researcher, I recently read AI 2027, a fairly widely disseminated paper put together by some prominent AI forecasters speaking to a hypothetical scenario as a thought experiment. Having read that and then watching Colossus, I was floored by how eerily aligned they are. Out of respect for audiences who may not have seen it, I will not say how the film ends so they can enjoy it. Suffice to say, it has to do with the U.S. government creating an artificial superintelligence that ultimately colludes with the Soviet version of an artificial superintelligence and as events unfold. That's the same sober conclusion these experts are hinting at in the AI 2027 paper, except now it's the U.S. and China. But the theme remains the same. Not killer robots or laser guns, but a simple shift of control. We hand it over, and the logic closes around us. I would be glad to write you a more extended essay about these parallels, but I realize this is a very long letter already, and I'm mindful of your time. Having said all that, before I come to the conclusion of this, I just have to say once again, this is just another piece of evidence that shows what an incredible buffoon Alex Kurtzman is when he says, amongst many other things, that sci-fi is not about the future. Oh, how I wish that hideout of his had been kept a secret forever. But it is what it is. Thank you, Rob, for your time and indulging me in this letter of gratitude. I adjourn now to tend to some business, but I believe it's time for me to finally indulge in true noir when all is settled. As someone who loves audiobooks and audio dramas, this one is well overdue for a listen. Thank you again for all that you do, by the fans, and for me. Live long and prosper. From your votary of verisimilitude and Duke of the Dewey Decimal System, Rocky Z. Well, Rocky, that is a great letter. What a great letter. What a fascinating letter. And hang on, you did send a picture of yourself wearing a Nelson and Murdoch attorneys at law shirt. And I would like to be sure and get you in and make sure that everybody gets to see who and what you are. I hope that's okay. So here is Rocky Z, everybody. There he is, who just wrote that letter. That was a great letter, by the way. And, you know, I really love it when people watch Colossus the Forbin Project, especially now, to see where AI might go. Remember, that movie was made 55 fucking years ago. And this is my problem. You know, when a lot of people, again, Rocky Z, people get mad at me for railing against modern Star Trek when I say, guys, and I'm not saying it would be very difficult to go back and watch everything and read everything. But if you are going to work on a science fiction show that had its genesis in the mid-'60s, and remember, it wasn't quite concurrent because The Twilight Zone aired from 59 to 64. I don't think, it might have been concurrent with Outer Limits, but there's a lot of history. If you're going to work on a show like Star Trek, one of the reasons that I can't stand modern Star Trek is they're not doing any stories that are about today. They're going back and they're rehashing stories that were about the 60s or what was going on in the original series. The thing about Star Trek was it was always a mirror that was being held up to us today. Well, the relationship drama that's being written in Star Trek it was stale 20 years ago. And they can't think of anything else to write. They don't know how to write science fiction. They don't know how to write. They're not even writing speculative fiction. They don't know science fiction as a genre, and they're ill-equipped to be writing Star Trek. So you're getting bad science fiction, you're getting bad drama, and worst of all, you're getting bad Star Trek. That is my they don't have the background to be writing Star Trek. That's my objection. And watching a movie like Colossus the Forbin Project, which is 55 years old, has a lot more to say about AI. Have they done any shows about the danger of artificial intelligence or where it could be? Don't know. But that's, as Rocky pointed out, great letter, by the way. Thank you for writing in. I really liked that letter. Not just because it was flattering to me either. So, now here's another one. This one comes from Brian Forno. Long time, second time. Brian says, I recently had an epiphany, and I wanted to get your take. I'm a fellow imagination connoisseur and comic book movie enthusiast, or at least I was. A common topic lately on your show and amongst your contemporaries is the mediocrity of the comic book movie genre as a whole and other sci-fi property films, which is an opinion and or fact I most certainly agree with. I've watched and listened to you opine on this fact enough to have started to pick up on some commonalities between the business of movie making and running a successful business in any industry. Hence my epiphany. For example, you've made reference to the budget of Star Trek: The Motion Picture. The budget to actually make the movie was $15 million, but because the accounting was changed to include the cost of previous Star Trek projects in development that never came to fruition, the budget was reported as $44 to $46 million. You don't have to be Donald Trump to understand the logic of why including additional expenses in the total cost of making the film makes sense. If they can increase the expenses, it brings their cost bases up, rather than paying taxes on the worldwide gross of $139 million minus $15 million in other expenses. Yes, welcome to Hollywood accounting. It then becomes $139 million minus $44 million or $46 million, whichever is correct, and minus additional expenses. Any savvy business owner would do the same, which is why you're always hearing about the 1% not paying their fair share of taxes and or taking advantage of the tax loopholes. They're always strategizing and looking for creative legal ways to minimize their tax liability, so ultimately they can pay as little as possible, preferably none. But yet when they do pay taxes, remember, the top percentage of people do end up paying a great percentage of tax. It's just that corporations and people, like you just pointed out, are using our tax codes to not have to pay tax, but they're also spending way more money than anybody on their businesses, on their corporations, on their employees. So all of this brings me back to my original point, which is the sad state of our beloved sci-fi comic book and book adaptations in fantasy films. Rob, hang on, I gotta blow this up a little. I'm getting old. Rob, you've done and continue to do an amazing job teaching us about the past, present, and future of the movie industry, among other topics. You're our very own Renaissance man. Why, thank you. You make sure we know that the people running the studios now more than ever are more concerned about the business of movie making and less concerned with the art of movie making. If only Matt Remick, Seth Rogen's character in the studio, existed in the real world. Maybe he does. You'll just have to let us know. Watching Seth Rogen's character defend the Emoji Movie as a work of art was refreshing, even though I've never seen the movie and have no plans to do so. So I have no opinion, but regardless, he's absolutely correct, or is he? Anyway, going back to the mediocre state of the movie industry, with the rare exception, are we just witnessing the outcome of some algorithm that predicts sustainable ROI, return on investment? Is it all just another revenue stream for investors who want another safe place with predictable returns to park their millions? Just like a responsible business owner can make informed projections based on industry data, are these studios doing the same thing with our beloved IPs? Well, kind of. Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't this how movies get financed, using industry analytics? It looks like they subscribe to the same school of thought as my Northwestern Mutual Investment Advisor, which is sustain good returns year over year. It's like a broken record when listening to movie reviews now. I keep hearing how good the movie was or how entertaining it is. Where's the Axe Capital or Gecko & Company studio that isn't satisfied with good returns? Bobby Axelrod and Gordon Gekko wanted to make the kinds of returns Jordan Belfort can only dream of. Nice references. Rob, I recently heard you ask the question, where's the next Matrix? You're right, Rob, as you often are. When are we going to get the next movie that blows your 11-year-old mind like Star Wars did all those years ago? Instead, we get vanilla, the safe bet, the Thunderbolts, the Fantastic Four, Superman. Let's be honest, every Marvel DCEU film that came after Endgame and or Spider-Man No Way Home. Rob, how many times did you watch Star Wars in the theater, and how many times did you watch it since 1977? In excess of 100, and I'm not kidding. The movies and shows we get now are one and done, meaning we watch them once and have no real interest in watching them ever again because they have no rewatchability. I'm currently watching Alien Earth on Hulu, and I'm enjoying it, and I do look forward to the following week's episode, but I haven't revisited the show since its release. I haven't rewatched any of the episodes. It just doesn't offer anything that's worth rewatching. It doesn't elicit any emotions, like the end of Steven Spielberg's AI Artificial Intelligence, or offer anything intellectually stimulating like Denis Villeneuve's Arrival, which accomplishes both. Shit, I'd be happy with something comparable to the episode of The Office where Jim finally asks Pam out on a date. I'm not even asking for Michael Scott's last appearance before he leaves Scranton to join Holly in Colorado. Sure, Alien Earth offers some cool ideas, but it doesn't offer any of the Project Hail Mary-like science behind those cool ideas. They just lay children on a table and magically transfer their consciousness into a synth body. Kind of like how James Gunn just tells us via a scroll that Superman just lost for the very first time. Now that would have made for an epic movie. Maybe he should have taken a page out of The Empire Strikes Back. I'll leave you with one last midnight musing, Rob, which is good because it's almost midnight. It's 2 minutes away. About low movie theater attendance. I no longer have a cable television subscription, but I'm pretty sure I have a subscription to all the streaming services. Peacock, Hulu, Netflix, HBO Max, Apple TV, Prime Video, and Disney+. Channel surfing has now been replaced by doom scrolling. I miss channel surfing. Gone are the pre-COVID days of watching network or cable television and having the same movie trailer play during the commercial break of the latest episode of Friends. Everyone said the movies were back after Top Gun Maverick, but now they have something else to contend with in addition to the Eddie Jones, the Lakers shooting guard before Kobe, quality movies. The financial cost of actually going to the movies. Taking a date to the movies used to be within even the tightest of budgets, significantly cheaper than, let's say, going out to dinner, but now I would say they're neck and neck. The last movie I went to see in the theater was Superman, and each ticket was $25. So that's $50 already, then another $50 on the drinks and the bar, and another $50 on the food and the treats. A total night is around $150 for two people. Rob, I'm old enough now when I remember being able to take a girl on a date in high school to watch Mrs. Doubtfire for $20. When will we get the next Robin Williams, by the way? I think I should end now before I start comparing James Gunn's sense of humor to that of a prepubescent boy. Thanks again, Professor, for your wisdom and willingness to engage anyone and everyone that has a story to share. And I have something to add. Here is our letter writer. And there he is with William Shatner. I've attached a picture of myself with William Shatner from back in 2017 at a luncheon in Ontario, California, where he was promoting William Shatner's charity horse show and gala. He said, don't share this. Uh-oh, I just shared it. I've lost about 80 pounds and 20 years since this pic was taken. Well, Brian, hey, you should look at me now. I need to lose 20 pounds. So I'm sorry, Brian, I showed this picture, but it's got Shatner in it. So how cool is that? Hope you don't get mad. I'm sure you look great now. You look great there. But I'm sorry. I had to put it up. I apologize. I didn't realize you didn't want me to put it up. I look at the attachment first. Once again, your loyal fan. Don't be not my loyal fan because I put that picture up. I apologize. I'm sure you look great. I need to look great. I need to lose 50 pounds. It's fine. But that was a great letter, too. Thank you for writing in. I very much appreciate that. I love people sharing their stories. And I like the fact that it's always a privilege that people take time to write these letters. These aren't just tossed off letters. So it's really an honor that you would write in. So thank you very much. I very much appreciate that. Let's see what we got here. Mike Gallagher has been a member for 18 months. Michael Nichols says, "Happy birthday, Rob." People have stopped saying happy birthday to me, which is it petered out. It lasted a year and a half. Write a letter about seeing Jaws in theaters, whether you read it on the show or not. If you got it, I'd love the feedback. Forever a fan. I don't know if I did, but now I will look for that. I will find that. I will look. Hemorrhoid hurts. 12 beers, 16-ounce port, and I bought a Geiger counter. Plus Rob. I don't know quite what that means, hemorrhoid hurts, but there you go. G. Aldrich says, do you know about the Gernsback continuum? I don't know, but I would imagine you're talking about Hugo Gernsback, right? Let me look it up. Well, let's see. It's up there. Let's see. The Gernsback continuum. Let's find out. It refers to the alternate reality or conceptual space envisioned in William Gibson's 1981 short story, The Gernsback Continuum, which explores a retro-futuristic idealized version of 1930s North American architecture and technology. The Gernsback does refer to Hugo Gernsback, an early 20th century pulp fiction publisher whose magazines, like Amazing Stories, featured vividly imagined, streamlined, and optimistic futures that never fully materialized in reality. The continuum in Gibson's story is a sort of dream world filled with these never-was technological marvels, which is the story's protagonist, a photographer, must capture for a British nostalgia publisher, but finds them beginning to intrude on his own reality. Well, that's cool. I haven't read this story. This predates... I discovered William Gibson when I read Neuromancer in, 84? That was Neuromancer, Count Zero, Mona Lisa Overdrive, which is still my favorite term for Mona Lisa Overdrive. If you know what it means. I wonder if... let's see. It's a great term. Hang on. I wonder if it... Let's see if it says that. Okay. It's... Well, it has a lot of meanings, but my meaning is you want to send a girl into Mona Lisa Overdrive, which is bringing her to orgasm. So, but this AI overview has a lot of different things. So there you go. Actually, it says right here, the title references the classic Mona Lisa artwork known for its mysterious smile and combines it with overdrive, representing modernity, technology, and a feeling of being overwhelmed or amplified by the present. Well, I would say it's a feeling of being overwhelmed or amplified. But that's okay. But the Gernsback Continuum, I haven't read that story. Now I've got to go read that story. Alvaro would know that story. So thank you for that. That's very interesting. But yeah, Hugo Gernsback, the man who brought us amazing stories. One of the great early heroes of science fiction. 1001 Johnny, our biggest Ultraman fan in the world, once again says, and lest we all forget, Rob, Ultraman episodes 10 and 14, Mysterious Dinosaur Base and the Pearl Defense Directive. The return of Ultraman episode 20, The Monster is a Giant Shooting Star in Space. and Ultraman Omega Episode 2, The Alien Scholar, and I. There you go. There's our Ultraman episodes to watch. One day I'm going to watch them, and I'm going to get back to you. And I'm going to say, yes, I saw them. Well, anyway, it's now Saturday, and our member call starts in a little less than 11 hours. So if you're a member of the channel, I will see you tomorrow if you want to come by. And if not, I'll see you at some other time later, and I want to thank you for your membership. I want to thank everybody for generously supporting this channel with tips and support and super chats and memberships. And I want to say people have asked about the full Roy Lee interview. The full Roy Lee interview will be up this week. And yeah, it's very exciting. I want to thank Roy for doing that and letting me sit down with him. I thought it was a great interview. You can watch the clip I pulled of the interview of me talking to him specifically about Stephen King and The Long Walk. That's on the channel right now. You can look it up. And if you haven't seen it, check it out. It's only 10 minutes, but I think it's really, really interesting. I want to thank Tom Jr. Jackson and the moderating staff. I don't know if Darth Plato is here and all of that, but he is here. Darth Plato is here. So it's a good thing I don't work at NORAD. Anyway, all those things, and we'll see you all tomorrow. And remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear, and all you have to do is listen. And also, a couple of updates. I'm getting ready to launch the short story competition. I've got the rights issues down and all of that, and I want to get that launched. And by the way, you will, if your short story is chosen, you do get paid by the word. So I think it's like 12 cents a word, but that doesn't mean you should write a bunch of words, write 10,000 words. You got to write a great story. But those are comparable rates for getting short stories published in other magazines, I was told. So 12 cents a word is what it's going to be. And so you do get paid if it goes into the book. So just so you know, and hopefully that would cover your entry fee. But that's going to start. So think about those short stories. Remember, if this is the first time you're hearing about it, we're going to have a short story competition, and we're going to publish a book called The Imagination Connoisseurs. Because I don't have money to do all this, we are going to have the short story competition, and we will crowdfund the book. And we're going to publish the book in 3 different versions, kind of like the way, I don't know if anyone's listened to the Icons of Fright podcast I also dropped on the channel. That podcast is in support of the new book, Icons of Fright, which is 100 interviews with horror luminaries. The book is really, really good. The interviews are great, which you can get on Amazon. You can get it as a digital download, you can get it as a paperback, or you can get it as a hardcover. We're kind of going to do the same thing, although you got to go for that slipcased hardcover version. But yeah, so The Imagination Connoisseurs is going to be the name of the book. And the idea is to write stories that will either appeal to imagination connoisseurs or explain what an imagination connoisseur is in however you want to do that, or delve into the meaning of what does it mean to be an imagination connoisseur. I leave it wide open, but obviously it's slanted towards science fiction, fantasy, and horror, or fantastical. If you want to write your Ray Bradbury-esque story, you can do that too. I leave it up to you. I just ask that don't use AI. Because we have these AI filters that we run things through, and it's just more work, but we're going to do it anyway. And also that's why the entry fee is steep. It's $50 because I'm giving it to real editors, giving them to real editors to read. But the reason, by the way, if you've already submitted, we were going to do this a couple years back. You don't have to worry about that. Your stories are still in play. But that's why I don't want people to just send me a bunch of AI generated slop that we have to read through. I want it to be a legitimate book. I've always wanted to edit an anthology, so make it good, people. Make it good. And I'll be back tomorrow for the member call, and I'll be back tomorrow night. And I want to keep doing shows. I'm going to be gone Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I'm going to court in Atlanta. I am a witness. I've been called by Paul Jenkins, the man who wrote Wolverine Origin, the man who created the Sentry for Marvel Comics. And this has to do with the fan film project Axanar that I was involved with back from 2014 through 2017. And I've been dragged through the mud by the proprietor of that project, and now I get to face him in open court. And I have to say that I'm a little excited. I get to be cross-examined. So I'll be in Atlanta. I leave on Wednesday, and I'll be gone Thursday, Friday, come back Saturday. But I'm sure it's going to be a hoot, and I can't wait to tell the tale, to amuse your captain, no? And on that note, I will say goodnight to all of you. Have a better evening, and thanks for joining me tonight. And everyone watch Seven. Give it a watch on its 30th anniversary this Monday, September 22nd. Crazy.